Casting Shadows. Look, it had the pedigree to be the next big thing. $4 million raised on Kickstarter, and look, it had so much potential. So what went so wrong with this game? Here's the 5 reasons why I just didn't enjoy Casting Shadows. Now, let me premise this by saying this game still has an audience. The casual gamer who picks up this game in retail will still get some enjoyment out of it. But my question is, would they just not be better off playing Unstable Unicorns instead? This game falls into that weird middle category, a limbo, where it caters for those casual gamers, those beginner gamers, even teenagers. But the problem is they've overcomplicated the game to try and aim it at a wider audience, and unfortunately the game suffers for this. Now, I will admit I did a Kickstarter video for this way back and I was hyped for this game. I threw my money at it, I got deluxe everything, and to be honest, do I need it all? Of course not. But look, I got suckered in like everyone else. So look, anyway, let's get into this game in a bit more detail. Casting Shadows is a 2 to 4 player, branching out up to 6 players with the expansion turn-based fight to the death battle game. In this game, you gotta roll those dice, collect the spell cards, and defeat your enemies. You start off as this cute little creature, but you're gonna collect shadow fragments and eventually turn into the more sort of darker, evil shadow version of yourself. Along the way, you're gonna collect counter spells, you're gonna even get companions to help you on your quest. Now, before we get into the negatives, I wanna give this game one big positive, and that positive is the artwork. The artwork in this game is dead set beautiful, and to be honest, it's the selling point for this game. Now, this is where my heart breaks here. The gameplay just does not do this art justice. So what are my 5 complaints? Let's get straight into them now. And number 1, this is my biggest complaint, and it's the hex tiles. The hex tiles are your game board. Your character's going to start on these hex tiles and it's going to move around during the course of the game. The problem is, each one of those hex tiles, when you start off, is going to give you some sort of bonus or some sort of action that is tied to that particular hex tile. Now here's the problem. There is no iconography on those hex tiles to tell you what those bonuses are. Instead, they give you one sheet of paper, just one sheet of paper with all of the hex tiles listed on there and the actions that are tied to them. Now imagine a 4-player game, actually even worse, imagine a 6-player game where you got to pass around that sheet of paper every single time around the board because no one knows what these hex tiles do. This is an absolute travesty of game design, and I have no idea how this did not get picked up in playtesting. So, Unstable Unicorns has admitted this is an absolute failure, and they've released a printout. You can either print out these sort of little icons, or you can print it out on a sticker sheet. Either way, you got to print it out, cut it out, either stick it onto those hex tiles or glue it onto the hex tiles. That is absolutely ridiculous for a game in this day and age. Number 2, and this is your starting character versus your shadow character. Look, the idea of this is actually pretty intriguing. But in its current form, this is just very much a gimmick. Every single game, you will start off with this cute little character, but after your first or second turn, you would have earned enough shadow fragments to turn yourself into your shadow version. Here's where my problem is. You will never revert back to that cute little character you began the game with. It just feels like you've gone through the motions every single game. You're going to race to get those shadow fragments, race to turn it into your shadow version, and at the end of the day, they could have just done so much more with this great mechanism. Number 3, and this is your low starting health at the start of the game versus the high damage that the spell cards do. In this game, you start off with 18 health for your character, yet some of those spells deal 5 and 6 damage at a time to you. So here's the problem. In a person's tableau, they can have multiple spell cards. I remember a game where I was at 3/4 health, then after someone's turn, I was completely dead. This is terrible game design, and it frustrated me so much to the stage where I just absolutely hated playing that game. Now here's the problem. I understand they've aimed this at the casual gamer, where they want the games to go quick because they want people to have repetitive plays, just like Unstable Unicorns. But the problem is the game isn't like that, and it shouldn't be like that. The casual gamer doesn't care about the length of the game, they care about the fun in the game. And unfortunately, things like this make this game not fun. So here's the solution. Either add more health to your starting character or dial back the damage that those spell cards can do. Number 4, and this one really annoyed me. Look, it's the lack of an action tracker. In this game, you get 4 actions per turn, sometimes 5 actions per turn, and those actions can be move around the board, re-roll, purchase cards, and cast spells. But here's the problem, there is no way to track how many actions you've taken. The amount of times people around the table went, have I done 2 actions? Have I done 3? Am I up to 4? I have no idea because there's no way to track this. Now again, how did this not get picked up in playtesting? Look, I'm starting to wonder if this game got playtested at all because these things are such simple ideas that pretty much anyone should have come up with. Now here's the thing, you've got a lot of room on your character card. You could have put in another dial to have your actions on there. You could have had an action slider where you can slide each time you do an action. A whole bunch of things you could have done, but you did none of these, and that's why it's so frustrating. Number 5, and this is you can't run away from attacks. Now, the game board is only 7 hexes big, and in a 4-player game, you're always going to be next to other characters. So here's the thing, the spell cards have damage of 1, 2, or 3 hexes away. It doesn't matter, you're always going to be constantly getting hit because you can't run away from other people. Sure, you can get counter spell cards, but that's it, that's your only strategy involved. It's just trying to get them to try and help minimize the amount of damage they do to you. Again, this just feels like such poor game design. They claim this game is a strategy game, but there is no strategy to it. At the end of the day, get the big spell cards as quick as you can, and you're gonna win this game. And because I'm a nice guy, here's number 6 for you. This is the dice tower. This will only affect the people with the deluxe version of this game. But basically, look, the dice tower is nice. Little cardboard dice tower, I like it. But here's the problem. You can't fit this in the box insert anywhere once it's assembled. So every time you finish playing the game, you gotta pull it apart. It's a pain in the ass to put it together again. Look, they're asking you to dismantle it, reassemble each game. No thank you. Look, at the end of the day, give me a slot in the box insert to put it once it's assembled. Look, I think this is something so simple, but it's again, just another frustration on top of many other frustrations. And lastly, let's end on a positive. For those people who back the deluxe version, you have some nice components to look forward to. Those neoprene game mats, the colours are so crisp and the artwork looks amazing on them, and they're actually quite practical. The acrylic standees, they actually look beautiful on the table, and I wish more games actually did acrylic standees, they look great. And finally, that big game board that sits underneath the hexes and the cards, again, I think it looks beautiful. Tell me what you reckon. Here's a photo of it without the game board, and here's a photo of it with it. Look, I think at the end of the day, this is why I back deluxe versions of games, because I just like those little extra touches. So there you go. Look, this was a pretty scathing review, and I don't like making these videos, but I do these videos because I want these game designers and these publishers to do a better job. If this was the very first game that you picked up into this hobby and you played it, look, to be honest, would you go back and play other games? No, that's the problem. Look, games like Catan and Ticket to Ride and Pandemic, at the end of the day, they're fun. They hook people into the hobby, and that's what we want. We want more people to enjoy this great hobby of ours. So look, I think this game is doing this hobby a bit of a disservice by being so lazy with its game design, and that's why I did this review. So where does this all leave me? It leaves me with a game that is dead set beautiful, a game that should have so much potential. But unfortunately, the gameplay just lets this down. So to be honest, I'm going to house rule this game a bit more, just so I can etch that little bit more fun out of this game. Actually, one last thing is, this game does not have a solo mode. So look, if you like solo modes in games, how about checking out my video there or there? Anyway, go check out my video, my top 10 solo board games of all times. It's a cracker of a video, you will love it. Anyway, that's it from me. Till next time, I'm Hoax, this is Board Game Bangers. Letters.